Tell me where I'm going to die so I won't go there. That's a famous quote from Charlie Munger in his explanation for why you should always invert hard problems. And I actually didn't know what he meant until I was working with a business coach trying to define my genius zone. This is the place where my passion and skills align with where I could add value and make money. And the question my coach started me with surprised me. He said, "What things absolutely drive you crazy?" He asked me to spend 15 minutes writing about that. It felt silly. I didn't understand how this was going to help me to get clarity. But I started writing, and as it turns out, it's pretty easy to come up with things that annoy me. People who chew with their mouths open, waiting in line, potpourri in bathrooms. There are plenty of superficial things like that, but it also unearthed some heavier stuff. Complaining came up for me in a bunch of different ways. Someone who unloads everything that's wrong in their life but has no intention of making any changes, or is talking about someone who isn't in the room, or is just sharing grievances as a way to get sympathy and validation. By the time I finished, I had this very long and very strange list. And then my coach asked me to read it and see if anything stood out. Took me all of 30 seconds to see this thread of victim mentality, complaining, blaming others, waiting for someone to come rescue you. This theme was all over my list. And then my coach asked me, what's the inverse of that? And it was immediately obvious to me. I am most energized by people who take ownership over their lives and their outcomes. People who don't spend their time complaining, but instead try to improve what they don't like. Those who decide what they want and then go after it. I could see it across so many parts of my life. The relationships I'd invested in most over the years versus the ones I'd pulled back from, the business opportunities I found most engaging, even the ones that didn't feel quite right, but I just couldn't put my finger on why. I've been making those calls on instinct for years, but flipping what I hated into its inverse helped me find clear language for what I already knew. And that's when I finally understood what Munger meant. He believed many hard problems become easier when you flip them. Instead of asking how to be happy, you ask, what would make you miserable, and stop doing those things. Most people get stuck because they're pushing on a problem from the wrong direction. And this works just as well for the hard problem of figuring out the right business for you. What do I want can be a super hard question to answer. I've asked it to a lot of people and been surprised by how many people freeze on it. But what's the wrong business for me? That one's easier. A daycare. I mean, I love kids, but those kids have parents, and I've done enough youth baseball coaching to know that would drive me crazy. But if you write down enough of these examples, their patterns start to emerge. Maybe you find that while you've been telling yourself you don't want to do sales, what your list reveals is more nuanced. You don't want to cold call, you don't want to prospect strangers, but maybe you actually like developing relationships and earning trust over time. Well, that's a way more useful distinction because it leaves open business models where the owner does some selling, just not that kind of selling. Now, this inversion model works. I know because I've used it inside our business too. One year we couldn't get alignment on what a great customer experience should look like. There were just way too many opinions and it was impossibly expensive to do everything that came up on the list. So instead we flipped the question. What would the worst customer experience look like? Now that one was way easier and honestly a lot more fun to answer. Now some of what ended up on that list was uncomfortable because it was a lot closer to home than we wanted to admit, but it also showed us exactly where to start. It turns out one of the best ways to find the right answer is to start with the wrong ones. So I'll leave you with my favorite inversion quote, courtesy of Dwight Schrute, Rainn Wilson's character on The Office. Whenever I'm about to do something, I think, would an idiot do that? And if they would, I do not do that thing. Don't quit your daydream. I'll see y'all next week. Cheers.